After much media anticipation, it all came down to this moment here at the Chatham House in London, an institution known for promoting intellectual engagement over issues of global interest, where the presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Chief Bola Tinubu, is set to ventilate his thoughts on national and global affairs. It's a packed room with associates, supporters and the media, including APC governors and leaders who accompanied him to the UK for the meeting.
I'm delighted to be chairing today Mr. Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Welcome back to Chatham House.
Chief Tinubu begins with his appraisal of election management and his strong opposition to electoral violence and malpractice.
Recent statutory engagements, enactment, and allowing the use of technology, the tools for the accreditation of voters and transmission of results, will deliver the fairest and freest election in our nation's history. I stand firmly against all forms of electoral violence and intimidation.
The presidential candidate then establishes a nexus between national security and economic development as he highlights on improved agriculture and he hints to further liberalize the energy sector if elected.
The centralized approach to energy policy infrastructure is not an optimal arrangement, and it is unlikely to improve by mere tinkering around the sides. The federal government, as regulator and operator and the price fixer, is a broken model. We are sure to fix this.
Chief Tinubu ends his about 25 minutes presentation with applause from his supporters and others, and then it's time for engagement.
Some would say something is going badly wrong with NNPC. Some would blame it on the organized theft of Nigeria's oil. What is your solution to this very pressing problem?
However, Chief Tinubu describes leadership as teamwork, asks his associates to respond to the questions asked.
To demonstrate that, I will choose the first question assigned to Dele Alake.
Okay.
And the second question assigned to Nasiru El-Rufai.
In the first 6 months of the Bola Ahmed Tinubu administration, oil theft would not only be reduced tremendously, the goal is to stop it in its entirety.
Nigeria has about 300,000 policemen for a population of over 200 million. We need at least twice that number. That will be achieved by amending the constitution so that policing can be at federal, state, and even at community level.
And this journalist, Priscilla Wipo, raises questions about his perceived dodgy character and his age.
There are issues at the moment running with regards to your identity, with regards to your age. So I wonder if you could provide some clarity on the issues of your identity and age, and also let us know when we can engage with you one-on-one.
The record is there. The transcript is there. So in March 1952, I'm not claiming another father. I am Tinubu and Tinubu proper. If they want a DNA, they could as well require for one.
And this is a response to why he avoids media engagements.
I see myself as a marketable individual. Want to use me to make money, and I'm saying no.
This forum with Chief Bola Tinubu at Chatham House will no doubt elicit reactions from different quarters in the coming days. He has, however, made his case for why he should be elected. As the Institute says, this is the first in the series of meetings in the run-up to the 2023 general elections. Jeffrey Uzongo, Channels Television News.
Right, well, those gentlemen join us next. Ali M. Ali, Deputy Director, Media and Publicity for the APC Presidential Campaign Council. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning, It's good to be here again. Good morning.
We also do have Mr. Daniel Boala, who also joins us as the spokesperson, Atiku Okowa Presidential Campaign Organization. Good morning, Mr. Boala. Thank you for joining us as well today on the program.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Okay, Mr. Ali, let's start with you. Of course, you've seen the hoopla this is generated over this Chatham House interview. But they will not rest. They keep talking about some of these things. Particularly, I know you also heard that part, how they thought that he ought to have addressed those issues headlong. But give us your impression of perhaps that performance and what you heard them say.
Well, I would say he did very well, as expected. Maybe to the surprise of his traducers, who thought, as usual, there will be one or two glitches, and they will latch onto that and make a feast out of it. But you can see that he spoke well, and the reaction, of course, naturally, people react differently. Some would applaud, and some would naturally condemn. And such is the enigma called Bola Ahmed Tinubu. All the time, what he says or he fails to say would engender mixed reaction, because he's an enigma, so to say. You can, from even the audience, people are still asking about his identity, about the mystery called Bola Ahmed Tinubu. But I would say you spoke extensively. Most of what he said actually is rooted in his action plan, in the 80-page document unveiled a couple of weeks ago about how Nigeria's role on the continent of Africa and how foreign policy from the time Nigeria became independent nation state has centered around first, repelling external aggression, promoting domestic growth, and ultimately making the country relevant on the continent and in the Committee of Nations.
All right. Mr. Bola, the APC doesn't see anything wrong in that performance. They said it was a deliberate style of the presidential candidate, of which the PDP won't stop going on about this one. So in context of what the APC has said, that they don't see anything wrong with that, you still maintain your stance, the PDP?
Well, it is strange and surprising if they said it's a deliberate strategy. Then it is a strategy that isn't syncing with the Nigerian people. First of all, let me tell you, the caption was that Tinubu addresses the world on the economy, security, and foreign policy. When in actual fact, Tinubu moved big personalities from Nigeria. He came and joined up with APC members in London and then a few lobbyists in that building. And that is why this morning, I'm in London here, not a single British tabloid covered or carried any news relating to the Chatham House. And you can juxtapose that with February 18th, 2015 Chatham House interventions that APC came when Muhammadu Buhari told the world that if APC was voted into power, the world will have no reason to worry about Nigeria in respect of security, economy, and fighting corruption. So the meeting of yesterday turned out to be a self-indicting eulogy, where you report yourself to the very venue where you came and gave false promise to the world about what you and your party will do to the Nigerian people. Because yesterday, when he came, he talked about security. And the world kept laughing because they know the security situation in Nigeria. In the past 7 years, the government of APC spent over $7 billion and procured every equipment conceivable. We still have security challenges. On the economy, the next government, in the first 3 years of the next government, whoever wins, is going to spend over 30 trillion. You are going to pay on debt over a period of 3 years. And you are going to do that at a time when, for the first time in the history of Nigeria, the NNPC does not have anything to remit. But look at the funny part, the disgraceful part of the conversation. When asked questions which of course ought to have been personalized. He ought to answer it because he presented a lecture. So you answer the question. You don't present a lecture and redirect question. But look at the funny part. When asked the question on oil theft, he redirected it to somebody who does not have a responsibility, is not running for that responsibility. When it came to fighting insecurity, he redirected the answer to El-Rufai, who not long ago told the world that bandits have surrounded Kaduna and are about to take over Kaduna and form government, that El-Rufai should tell the world their plan or their reactions to fighting security. When it came to oil theft, which is a national security threat in the country, he assigned it to somebody who have no knowledge whatsoever of the activities of oil and oil theft in the Niger Delta. And what he did yesterday was that for every question that he was asked, and he redirected it to people, in other words, abdicating responsibility, by the time they say one or two things, then he will pick a word. In other words, he was acting like a robot. Now, I'm saying that with every sense of respect, because we are trying to elect a president that will be answerable to the Nigerian people. Now, even the journey to London is needless. Why? Because the Nigerian press are the only ones carrying what you went to London to do, which was reflected in your early analysis on the
Mr. Bola,
but the British tablet have not done that.
Before you go way too far, Mr. Ali will definitely will want to respond to some of what you've said. Go ahead.
Well, you know, like the candidate stated, leadership is collective. His style is that, look, he came with a team. And you could see that from his responses, he responded to some of the questions. He merely asked members of his team to speak, to respond to some of these questions. But you expect critics, the opposition, to pick holes in what the delegated others to speak on his behalf. But all said and done, the message is there. It says the questions raised, they've been answered. They've been answered.
You do know that there have been big question marks about the cognition or cognitive abilities of your candidate. Because I know that in your first statement, one of the things you said is that the opposition was waiting for, as usual, that's what you said, as usual, some glitches in his speech. And those glitches have put a very big question mark on the cognitive ability of your candidate. And there have been questions as to whether or not he's really together enough mentally and cognitively to be president of Nigeria. So when, after he finished the speech, which was put in the teleprompter for him, he read it, or let me say, spoke to it, as we would say in the media. He spoke to it, but then we're expecting that he will follow up that performance with taking of questions. But that was delegated, which raised, even further questions about his cognitive ability. Do you think that was a wise decision on the part of your party, or was that playing it too safe for a candidate whose cognitive abilities have been called to question?
You know, a lot of people say the candidate's cognitive abilities is on the decline, and they make a fist out of it. You see all kinds of memes on the social media. But you see, occasionally it happens to people, senior moments. They call it, I think, in medical terms. Occasionally you have that. And when you have the amount of information at the disposal, even, I'm sure some of us, even in the newsroom, sometimes when you are inundated with all kinds of information at your disposal, you are meeting, you are having late night, you expect maybe once in a while, senior moment. It happens to the best of people. And then, as for reading from the teleprompter, a lot of world leaders do that. Like you said, they speak to it. So I wonder how people arrive at that conclusion, especially...
Which conclusion?
That his cognitive abilities are on the decline. And that's why perhaps he played it safe by delegating some of this, by asking some people to respond to some of these questions. But I wonder how they arrive at that. We've seen so many of other candidates making these occasional glitches in speech, in communication. And I don't see a lot of people losing sleep over that.
Is there anyone that the PDP has made?
Well, a couple of them. I don't want to go, not PDP. We've seen instances where some people refer to states as countries, for example.
Okay. Now,
and we've seen where,
assuming that were the case, I mean,
yeah.
your style is, the party can choose whatever style they want.
Yeah.
But when asked about health, maybe your personal health, I mean, I thought you know your health more than anybody else.
Exactly.
But should somebody else be speaking about your health?
Certainly not. And he has said it in the past that, look, it's not a wrestling bout, that he is healthy enough to run the affairs of the country. And that he's not going into a wrestling bout, he's not going into a wrestling contest, he's not going into a duel, boxing duel. It's about how his ability to do the job. And then you can see from how he has networked over the years, how he has remained very relevant in the political discourse, national political discourse over the years. From the time he became governor in 1999 to this moment, he has remained in the center stage of national political discourse. You can't take that away from him.
Well, Mr. Bola, he seems to be saying that, look, the candidate has a team around him. He has to find a way to introduce and demonstrate that he's got, you know, credible and relevant persons around him, hence that approach which you frown against.
So let me help them in case they need help in that regard. You can constitute a team after you have become president and have appointed individuals into specific roles. Therefore, when you have engagement like that, you can ask them to speak because you have assigned them and you will hold them accountable. You do not apportion responsibility to teams when they are not going to be on the ballot. The people who want to vote in Nigeria, they want to vote a man. A man they want to assess his suitability or otherwise. That's number one. The idea that he has a team and that is their style is a fallacy of generalization. And people can see that. As regards what they call temporary gap, from the day he declared to become president till today, including yesterday, there has never been a day where you will not find gaps. And these gaps are not just misspelling or mispronunciation. They are gaps of fundamental issues which reflect, for example, the cognitive ability of that person. The Constitution is clear about who wants to be the president. Now, you are talking about somebody who was asked personalized question as regarding his age. Do you need somebody to speak to someone about your age? Were they there when you were born? You have for now in the media space about 3 different dates of birth. There is 1952, there is 1954, and there is 1953 or thereabout. And you have not cleared that. Another fundamental question is about his identity, which includes his name and the school he went to. You don't abdicate that responsibility to somebody. Then about education. If they are asking you questions that relates to individuals other than you, after you have made the intervention, you can say, okay, I want ABC to add further. So in other words, what he is doing is that he is saying, Nigerians, I want you to vote 5, 10, or 12 of us. And a man who does not have regard and respect for the freedom of the press, look at the Constitution. The freedom of the press is as important as fundamental human right. He has abdicated the responsibility of appearing before the Nigerian press, but he went to what he called the rest of the world to appear before them. In fact, he was even challenged in Nigeria. They say, if you can select any TV house, select a TV house of your choice, but appear and talk and let the Nigerian people ask you questions.
All right, Mr. Bola, let me bring in my colleagues from Lagos. But about his age, he actually spoke to his age at that event, didn't he? So how is that still in contention?
Okay, if you want me to answer that before you take that to your colleague, let me tell you this. About his 18 reaction or in response to that, he said, if they want DNA, do you say if or you produce that? He said, I am Bola Ahmed Tinubu. If you are asked, okay, look at it this way. The INEC form that you sign, and you do that as an affidavit like you saw under oath, the age is different from the age specified in the passport containing the visa that he carried. Then you look at it from certain documents that were procured from Chicago, and you see discrepancy. When you have that kind of discrepancy, you, like the way in our law practice, we say document speaks to document. You are to present a document as he even said that I now have my original replacement certificate with Chicago. Why don't you release it to the press?
All right, let me bring in my colleagues to go ahead, guys.
Thank you, Chamberlain. Well, let me begin with you, Mr. Bwala. I mean, twice in your response to the previous question before the age question that you answered, you mentioned the fact that the Constitution you suggested that the Constitution is being breached one way or the other. Talking about its cognitive ability, you said the Constitution is very clear about who will become president. And also talking about, whether or not he should face the press, you said the Constitution is also clear about that. So I'm just wondering if you think there is a legal issue to be taken up with the APC or with the candidate of the APC in that regard. Has he breached the Constitution, accordingly from the responses you gave?
So that is the problem we have sometimes, and not your fault generally, with journalists. When interventions are made regarding issues, they tend to want to tie it to the law, to say, if it is the law, why don't you go to court? The court of public
one that brought in, Mr. Bwala, just a second.
Matters that relate to the court of law will certainly be taken. Okay. I'm coming.
Okay.
Please allow me. Oh,
go
you
ahead.
don't allow
Just go ahead.
Allow
go ahead. Go
finish
ahead.
now, so that you will be able. You can actually the follow-up. Matters that relate to the law will certainly be taken to court by members of the legal profession. What the Nigerian people are doing, you are not facing the court of law when you are running for office. You are facing the Nigerian people. There are moral issues. There are ethical issues. They are issues fundamental to engagement leading to election. They are much more important than the legal issue. Because the idea that there is freedom, when you talk about he breached the Constitution and freedom of the press, he did not arrest any journalist. He refused to appear before certain press, and he was asked, choose your own and go. He has a television house, and he refused. When you don't do that, it's not a matter of law. It's a matter of disrespect to the sensibility of the people you're seeking for them to employ you as the #1 president of the Federal Republic.
Oh, I brought in the Constitution issue because you are the one who made it clear. You said the Constitution is very, very clear on that. That's why I asked that question about whether or not, and you mentioned it twice. That's why I asked the question whether or not you thought, it is something that is salient enough for people to give attention to. Now, talking about some of the content of the issues that are raised, and I don't know, maybe if you think that the personality of the individuals in the run-up to the elections, to the general elections, is overshadowing the content of the things that they are saying. There are those who would wonder whether or not, the issues being raised by the various candidates running for office is as important as the personality of the people who are raising the issues.
Yes, thank you for that question, and here is the answer. The personality of the person is issue, much more important than the issue stated in the manifesto. Why? Because the Nigerian nation cannot afford to elect somebody that will be a subject of blackmail by foreign agent or foreign government. And I give you an example. In the build-up to the 2016 election, Donald Trump, a question was raised as regards his activities in Russia, and they were saying that he should not be voted for. They did that because intelligence report had it that during his days of beauty pageant, he was in Russia, and the hotel where he stayed, secret cameras were placed that recorded his activities with women. And the American public feared that if elected, the Russian government might use it to blackmail him. Well, to cut the long story short, he won the election, and for 4 years, could not say anything against Russia. He was defending Russian intelligence over and above the American intelligence. Do you know why? Because they had his dossier, they will blackmail him. Now, you have somebody who wants to be a president. You don't know where he was born. You don't know when he was born. You don't know how he grew up. You don't even know the school he went to. Even the Chicago that he went, there are multiple documents that suggest that somebody by name Bola A. Tinubu, female, in Chicago went to that school before himself went after that female died. Now, you need to clear them. They call it house clearing. You need to clear them aside. Then you come back to issue, because when it comes to issue, I can talk here till the cows come home, that their entire manifesto is a campaign against their own political party. Even yesterday, when he was talking about electoral violence and his commitment to fight electoral violence, which political party is perpetrating the violence in Nigeria as we speak today? To the point where the president of that party had to call the National Security Advisor, Inspector General of Police, to give promises to the world that they will not allow that states where their own governors are governing would intimidate others, fight others, and kill people from coming to campaign. Now they have even escalated it to threats to our lives. I have reported a couple of times threat to my personal life. He went there and said, I'm committed that there will not be electoral violence. So if you come to issues, I will give you 1,000,001 issues to buttress the fact that what they are doing is what we call the conflict of self-interest. They know they failed on the 3 promises that they gave, and they are now using the same 3 promises in another word as a packaged promise to the Nigerian people.
All right, let me take the same question.
Issue of identity
yes.
is important because identity defines your destiny.
Okay. Well, Mr. Ali, you've listened to Mr. Boala, and I'm almost certain that you have your answers or responses ready to some of the issues that he has raised. But if you don't mind, begin with this issue that he raised about the importance of the individuals over and above the issues that they are campaigning with.
Well, certainly leadership, when you aspire to lead the exalted office of the president, naturally it comes with the territory. You'll be subjected to the crushable, naturally, because some of the issues he raised, they are actually overflocked. There are issues that have been raised in the past, and I think Nigerians know they are in the public domain. Now, let's talk about this thing about the constitutionality of, his duel of which we asked him about the freedom of the press. But also the Constitution is clear. I'm not a lawyer, he's a lawyer. About the right, the freedom of association. You can choose to associate with whoever and whoever, whatsoever, you know. So, and now the issue of whether multiple identities, like I think he likes to, I think the honors is for people like him to prove otherwise. And like you said, some of these charges are not new. They've been done in the past. But you look at it even, there are others who have taken it a notch higher, but where did that take them? So I think it's a dead end for critics, for the opposition element.
Your candidate's response to the concern about his absence at one-to-one engagements, particularly at home during presidential debates, was that he would rather not have, he said something to the effect that he would rather not have people cash in on his personality to make money, something to that effect. How tenable is this response to this very critical concern? I ask this because surely when he got into the race, he knew the requirements that he would be scrutinized by the media and the people such that he can present his plan, his vision for the Nigerian people should he become president. So how tenable was this response?
But, well, how tenable it is, of course, the media sometimes, a section of it that is. We've seen that happen in the past. I remember in the days of General Babangida, every now and again you see cover stories about things that did not actually happen. We've had instances where a magazine went to town way back in history with a cook-up story about a coup d'etat that never happened. So names could be used, names like his, to either to get the ratings up or to make money out of it. So yeah, it's tenable in some instances.
In some instances, I wonder what that people would make of that. But if he couldn't subject himself, if he refuses to subject himself to the simplest, forms of requirement as far as accountability is concerned, why should Nigerians then vote for him?
He's taking his campaign to Nigerians. He's taking it to them. The media incidentally is one vehicle, but he's going to them directly. He went to Kaduna, for example. He spoke at the one event in Lagos not too long ago. He's taken his campaign directly to the people. And he has said over time, we've said it, we maintain it, that, look, we especially in the case of this particular media organization, there are reasons why he said he's not going to attend any of the town hall meetings. We've explained this
there are no scrutinies at the campaign level. There are no scrutinies at the campaign level. There are no questions. There's no ideological debate at the campaign levels. Are you trying to say that the campaigns are more important than, you know, those debates where Nigerians would want to hear his ideas, you know, for the transformation of the country, which are the critical issues that they require, that they want to hear about, you know, from an incoming president?
You see, most of the issues, most of the debates are captured in his action plan, and they are there. His action plan speaks virtually on every other issue. So it's just a matter of style. He's right. Spoken in the action plan. Everything is captured there. So it's just a matter of time. And look, the campaign just started like barely a month ago, and it's still work in progress. Don't be surprised that there might be a change of heart.
I'm glad you said they're contained in his action plan.
Foreclosing anything.
I'm glad you say that they're contained in his action plan and in his blueprint, you know, and the international community at that event would have wanted to hear that from him, which is where I will be headed, but that will be after the break. You're watching Sunrise Daily on Channels Television. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Sunrise Daily on Channels Television. We still have with us Mr. Ali Ali. He's the Deputy Director, Media and Publicity, All Progressives Congress. He's in our Abuja studio. And we have Mr. Daniel Bwala, spokesperson at Atiku Okowa Presidential Campaign Organization, who joins us via Zoom. We're still reviewing the Chatham House engagement, during which the presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress made that big appearance yesterday in London. Mr. Ali, we're still looking at, you know, the response of your presidential candidate to some of those questions. And, you know, in his defense, you say that they're contained in his blueprint, and that can be seen, his vision can be seen in his blueprint, which is why I'd like to ask, some of the questions raised there were critical to that blueprint, and Nigerians and indeed the international community would have wanted to hear directly from him, you know, for him to speak to the blueprint. But then he delegated the questions to members of his team who, would I say now, did they particularly speak to the blueprint? In your view, did they speak to this blueprint that you talked about in their response?
Well, it's a team, so they are familiar with the content of the action plan. Every member of the team is familiar with the content of the action plan. Some of them are party to its drafting. So yes, they spoke about some of the things contained in the blueprint, in the action plan. Especially if you look at El-Rufai, spoke extensively on security and related matters. He spoke about the numerical inadequacy of Nigerian security forces. He spoke about policing, about the inadequacy of the military, and then the nature of the insurgency, separatism, banditry the nation is facing, and how the Nigerian military forces perhaps were not equipped to deal with this kind of war. They are trained to protect the nation's sovereignty, territorial integrity, not to fight an insidious enemy, not to fight an insurgency or banditry. Now, with that in mind, I mean, like it's contained in the action plan of the candidate, how he plans to tackle that. And first, to boost the clear numerical inadequacy. I'm talking about security now. And then if you go to health, somebody raised an issue about health also. Is there in the action plan?
Just hold on there, Mr. Ali, before you go to health. Before you go to health, may I come in there? May I come in there? Still with security, someone asked a very important question about how the Defense Pact entered into with Nigeria by the former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom had benefited, the generality of the people. And the response of the Speaker of the House of Representatives was about the Leahy Law, about how it has affected Nigerians in the bid to procuring equipment, and about how restrictions of that law may need to be reviewed. But that has been done already, and Nigeria has taken delivery of Super Tucano aircraft. So the response to the question, I believe, should have been about how defense pacts, bilateral or multilateral, has benefited Nigerians to the effect that it has helped in the fight against insurgency. So is that response satisfactory, in line with the blueprint that you talk about, and about how the fight against terrorism will be sustained?
Yeah, partly yes, because with that agreement now, we see some of these superpowers now agreeing to sell arms to Nigeria, especially the Super Tucano, which has helped tremendously in reversing the fortune of the counter-insurgency effort. It has helped tremendously in doing that. But even at that, the counter-insurgency process is consuming a lot of resources. For example, now, the military expert will tell you that every sortie the Super Tucano jets carry out, it costs the thousands of dollars. So it's costing the nation a lot of resources. But even at that, with the retooling, which this government has done greatly in retooling the armed forces, in reinvigorating the Nigerian armed forces, which has not been done for all the years until the APC government came into office a couple of years ago. Now, with that, it has changed the depressing narrative of territories being annexed, foreign flags being hoisted, republics declared by insurgent elements. And of course, with the recovery of some of these annexed territories, and then the insurgent element dispersed from their, if you like, the northeast region. Some experts will say, look, it has taken a different dimension. They dispersed into the northwest, became bandits. And of course, you can see the unholy, well, if you like, the alliance between bandit elements and insurgents elements and terrorists, which I think early in the year, there was this misfortune that happened to the rail between Abuja to Kaduna, which was sabotaged, and then foreign insurgent terrorists claim responsibility. But all said and done, beyond the retooling of the Nigerian Armed Force, especially the Armed Force and the Air Force, and even the Army, there is numerical inadequacy. And also there is the nature of the training. The doctrine has to be changed, which RFI elaborated, spoke extensively on. Look, the training, they have to be retrained to face a kind of war we are facing now, the asymmetrical warfare we are facing now. You are dealing with an insidious enemy. He's within the population, he studied the weaknesses of this community or the society, and they know the soft underbelly of the society.
Well, Mr.
So
Ali,
yes, with that, we think it has tremendously helped to reverse the misfortune that has befallen the nation in the last couple of years, since banditry, since terrorism started about 13 years ago now, in 2009.
Now the opinions will be divided on that as to how efficiently or effectively your party has handled the security angle over the years, depending on who is looking at whatever data. But I'm pretty sure that Mr. Daniel Bwala has some responses to a number of issues that you have raised in your responses to my colleague Bukola's question. Mr. Bwala, please go ahead.
Right. Yes. So first of all, let me start with the Kaduna incident. The candidate of APC does not have a clue about what is contained in their manifesto. He said it by himself in Kaduna when he was reading out the speech. He got to a point, he said, hey, this thing they wrote is just too much. That is case number one. Case number two, if you are vying for the post, you should internalize. The idea of manifesto is that it is your vision you give to people to go and break it down. So you have to have the first-hand knowledge. And that is why in every engagement, you should be able to stop and not allow others to speak. We've established that. The second part with respect to security and their strategy. You recall not long ago where they said they have, and in fact in their manifesto, a secret of dealing with insecurity in 6 months. So we asked them, since Buhari has about 6 months or 7 months to exceed, why don't you give him that secret so he can deal with insecurity? But the fact is they don't have the secret. And this is the proof. In the last 7 years or 8 years, I told you they've invested about 7 to 8 billion US dollars. So let us establish one fact. They have bought every weapon conceivable. We have Tucano, we have helicopters, we have guns, we have ammunition. Yet it has not ended insecurity because of this thing that they are lacking, which is also not in their manifesto. In other words, the labor of the foolish, we read every one of them because he doesn't know how to go to the city. What they lack and what Nigeria is lacking now is a revamping of the intelligence architecture of Nigeria, expanding the intelligence capacity of all the intelligence platforms so we can increase our foreign surveillance of agents within the country and agents in the border.
Well, Mr. Gwala, just 1 second, if you can hear me on that one, the level of insecurity, my apologies if you can hear me, just a second. There are those who would also reference the fact that the quantum of insecurity we have on our hands now started under the PDP government. With the height of it was the abduction of the Chibok girls in 2014 and the delay in government taking requisite action to forestall the issues. There are those who wonder, look, how is that different from what we have on our hands now, given that the severity of it, the build-up started under the PDP government. The severity of it, happened under the PDP government. Yes, it has happened significantly so under this APC government as well. But there are those who would say that your party is no different. How would you respond?
I'm glad you said there are those. So I'm happy you are not the one thinking, because those who are saying that kind of a thought is called a lazy thought. This is a political party that is completing full second time cycle. You have the ample opportunity to correct what you claim was a fundamental problem. And that's why you have the opportunity after the first 4 years to say, I've started something, I need to complete that. So if, assuming, in fact, PDP was even a terrorist organization, I'm just giving the worst case scenario, you had the 8 years to be able to correct that. I have just said, and I'm saying that to those that you're talking about, that $7 billion have been invested and that these things have been procured. I'm going to say that to those that you are talking about, that you had the opportunity of critically looking at certain architecture of government that deal with insecurity. How many armies do we have? They told the Chatham House that we have a little less than 200,000. In 8 years, you could not expand the capacity of those armies. It is a party warring against its own party. They talk about policing. And that is why, as PDP, we offered alternative solution to dealing with this. We are looking at expanding the broad-based capacity first of intelligence platform, because this war is won and lost on intelligence first. That's why you have your Tucano, but it is packed somewhere. And you have to have intelligence that these people are moving here and there to be able to kick the engine of Tucano and go and shoot them. These bandits and terrorists are coming into cities and towns and even palaces and kidnapping people because of lack of intelligence. Let me push it further. In fact, our intelligence platforms are so effective and willing to work that we have seen that on 2-3 occasions where the intelligence platform were accused, these people have in fact released intelligence 6 months ahead of intended plan by bandits. What have the policymakers do that? They are busy trying to put pressure on intelligence platform to oppress and suppress and intimidate opponent and political party because they lack the idea of dealing with it. In other words, they are politicizing security. That is what they don't have. And if you give Bola Ahmed Tinubu 8 years, he will not find a solution, because fundamentally, the problem is there. So the fundamentals of their security architecture and philosophy is a failed one. There is no idea to how much they can forge ahead. Now, with respect to healthcare, because it's important they raise that as an issue in the Chatham House. Let me tell you the state of Nigeria today. Every year, on an average, 30,000 Nigerians travel abroad for medical tourism. Out of these 30,000 people that travel, the investment is within the range of $2 to $3 billion, right? And they cut across 4 segments: orthopedics, renal analysis, cancer, and cardiology. PDP as a party said that when we come, and Atiku said a few days ago, we are going to first look at healthcare insofar as it affects the Nigerian people, revamp it. During this COVID, APC-led government got billions and billions from private sector to build up a wall of defense as far as the healthcare was concerned. You saw how doctors were dying in the front line. Now, how many doctors have left Nigeria? These billions have come. I have come to England. If I have to go back now, if I'm not vaccinated, I have to register and then pay for day 2 and day 7. All over the world, they've opened up their economy. They are no longer exploiting money from their citizens. Where are the monies going? So from COVID to this day, have you seen any world-class hospital investment by this government and by APC to say this is our approach to dealing with that?
All right, gentlemen, we need to wind down. So I'd like both of you to respond briefly to this. Just a minute, Mr. Bola. I'd like both of you to respond to this in 2 minutes each, if you can, starting with you, Mr. Ali. He also did say that INEC has not assured the APC on the functionality, reliability, and credibility of BVAS. And many people thought, wait a minute, but I thought your party recanted and said, okay, well, to extent, yes, it were misconceived, misquoted, as it were, but him saying it now will definitely raise a lot more questions because INEC has had several meetings with political parties. So is he not getting feedback? What does it really mean when he says INEC has not assured them on the use of BVAS?
Well, I think, you know, we've seen viewers used in the past in the Ocean election. It has worked perfectly well, and it has served the purpose it served. Well, let me just go slightly back to respond to something he said in the past. It just crossed my mind now about the party who has been in office in the last couple of years that is one that is likely to perpetrate violence. This is a government, this is a party, that is the APC under the Buhari's watch, which elections have been conducted in which the state actually, the party lost. In some of the states, it lost in Oshun, for example. In the past, under PDP, we've seen instances where elections will be won, but then something dramatic will happen. We've seen that happen in 2003 and 2007. The election of 2007 under PDP's watch, even the beneficiary of that election admitted that, look, it was flawed, but substantially, according to him, late Umar Eradua, God rest his soul. But he was doing something about it. Yes. So now, coming back to this, you understand, when the candidate said he has not been assured, and I think from what we've seen, Bivas are the way to go. So was he misinformed about the use of Bivas? He might have some reservations, but certainly Bivas are the way to go. All right, Mr. Bola, so I guess everybody may be on the same page on BVAS. I don't think your party has an issue with BVAS, do you?
No, the issue we have is the self-indicting eulogy that, you see, what he did yesterday, he inadvertently exposed their fundamental plans to rig the election. We told you a couple of weeks ago when their chairman was quoted to have raised issue about BVAS, the Nigerian people reacted, so they had to issue a statement to say, no, he was very out of context. Now, the candidate is telling the world he does not believe in BVAS because he's saying he has his question about BVAS. He forgot. BVAS has been used in Oshun, in Anambra, in Ekiti. BVAS is not going to be used. It has started. And in all these places where BVAS was applied, the elections went as a reflection of the people. In Anambra, ABGA won. In Oshun, PDP won. In Ekiti, APC won. BVAS reflected the near push towards a perfect political system. But up till this moment, this is what they are saying. There is even an allegation that they brought people from China and housed them somewhere in Lagos where they are cloning certain INEC documents. We are going to still invest.
All right, Mr. Bola.
When we make that, since it's to the necessary agency.
We need to wrap up at this stage, but he, through he made some statements, which is also quoted widely, that one of the candidates, one of the presidential aspirants or candidates may not be a Nigerian. Do you think your candidate is going to publish documents proving otherwise?
If you need it tomorrow morning, please let us know so that tomorrow he will publish every document in the mind of the Nigerian press. Atiku Abubakar, you saw the Arise interview, the Arise town hall. He sat there. He was speaking from the bowels of his heart and soul on the issues he cared about. Presidential, matured, and in no way abdicating responsibility to anybody.
All right, Daniel Bola, spokesperson, Atiku Okowa Presidential Campaign Organization, as well as Ali M. Ali, who is the Deputy Director of Media and Publicity for the APC Presidential Campaign Council. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for coming on today. All right, well, back in a moment. Stay with us.